What do women really want when it comes to size? It's a question that keeps coming up. Look through social media for a bit or sit at a dinner table where people have been drinking wine and someone will probably bring it up. People make jokes, casual comments, and sometimes even argue about it. Is size important? And does bigger always mean better? Some men are worried about the answer while others talk about it like it's a good thing. But let's stop and ask a more direct, honest, and useful question. Do women really want a very big penis, or is that just something people imagine? I'm Dr. Kim, a specialist in men's sexual health. My work is based on facts, not guesses. Today, I want to get rid of the myths and the confusion. Let's take a closer look at what women really want when it comes to penis size. This isn't about what you've heard in the locker room or read in the headlines, but about what the research, purchase habits, and real-life experiences tell us. Be prepared for the truth to be very different from what you've been told. Before we dive into the numbers, it's essential to understand the problem. When we ask people about their intimate preferences, we often get unreliable answers. This is because people might be influenced by social pressure, feel embarrassed, or want to impress. That's why researchers sometimes try other ways to figure out what's really going on. One clever way to do this is to look at what women actually buy for themselves, especially when it comes to adult toys. It makes sense. When someone buys something for personal use without anyone watching, their choices often show what they really want more clearly than they would say in a survey or a conversation. So what do the numbers tell us? Researchers looked at the best-selling toys from 8 big companies, focusing on products designed for personal use. Here's the interesting part. Most people buy toys that are between 4 and 6 inches long. Yes, 4 to 6 inches, not longer or shorter than that. Even more interesting, on 6 out of 8 websites, the average best-selling toy was less than 6 inches long. The size of the toy's diameter or girth followed a similar pattern, averaging less than 4.5 inches. Let's put that in perspective. These numbers are very close to the average size of an erect penis around the world. In other words, the most popular toys are almost exactly the same size as what most men naturally have. This isn't just a coincidence. It shows what works comfortably and pleasurably for most people's bodies. Word count, 146. Now, many men don't actually know what average is, which leads to a lot of unnecessary stress and anxiety. Research done across different countries has shown again and again that the average penis length is between 5 and 6 inches, with a circumference of about 4.5 to 5 inches. But because of the way pornography and popular culture portray men, many guys think they're smaller than they should be. The truth is that if you're within this range, you're normal, and actually many women prefer men who are around this size when given the option. To make sure these findings weren't just a one-time thing, researchers looked at the dimensions of the best-selling realistic sex toys from the top 5 retailers in the US and Amazon. Here the numbers were slightly different. The average length was about 6.5 inches. That's a bit longer than the average penis, but it's still pretty normal. This makes some people wonder if curiosity might be a factor in why people choose these larger toys. Some women may look for something a bit bigger than usual, but the overall trend is still towards being moderate, not extreme. However, the size alone doesn't tell the whole story. Other researchers went further to find out what factors really make products popular. They discovered something unexpected for many men. The price and the width of the product had a much bigger impact than its length. Many women prioritize being able to afford it and having a comfortable fit over trying to have the biggest size possible. In fact, products with a size above the average often rank lower in popularity. Why? Because being comfortable, easy to use, and practical is often more important than being new or extreme. So what does this mean when we look at the bigger picture? When women are able to choose for themselves without being judged, the majority tend to go for something within the normal human range. Average length, average width, maybe just a bit above average in some cases. Not extreme, not scary, just comfortable, functional, and enjoyable. This discovery turns the way the media reports things on its head. Popular culture might show people of very large size as heroes, but in real life, people behave differently. Women are choosing to be average, not because they're making a compromise, but because it feels best for their bodies. Here's the main point. If your size is typical, you have no reason to worry. You're good enough, you're normal, and you can satisfy your partner. Yes, there will be some people who are different, people who joke, people who exaggerate, or people with very specific tastes. But overall, the evidence shows that average is not just okay, it's actually what most people want. Think about that for a moment. When women make choices on their own, when they're not trying to impress anyone or follow what society expects, the majority of them consistently choose to be average. This should be very reassuring for many men who have spent years doubting themselves. This changes everything we thought we knew about what people want. It turns out that typical is not just acceptable, but it's actually the most popular size. This should give men a lot of confidence. For years, they've been made to feel like they're not good enough, but the truth is that most women want average. This is not about being the biggest or the smallest, it's about being normal. And being normal is not something to be ashamed of, it's something to be proud of. Now let's bring in one more interesting piece of information. A separate study discovered that women who regularly have an orgasm through vaginal penetration rather than clitoral stimulation showed a slight preference for a bit more length. However, this difference is quite small. We're talking about tiny variations, maybe an extra half inch, not huge changes. It's worth noting because it shows how different women's experiences can be. Some women might prefer a bit more length, but the vast majority are happy with the average size. At this point, it's essential to remember something that's often forgotten in these conversations. Sex is not a competition about size. A satisfying experience is made up of many things, including confidence, good communication, being attentive, and emotional closeness. In fact, these factors play a much bigger role in creating a satisfying experience than measurements ever could. Shows that things like trust, closeness, and a partner's willingness to listen and adapt often mean more for happiness than physical size ever could. A man who is present, confident, and caring can give more fulfillment than someone who relies on their body. Here's a different way of looking at it. Many men who struggle with insecurity about size actually hold themselves back more because of their worries than because of their bodies. When you worry too much, it can make you less confident, make you feel pressured to perform, and make sex less fun for both partners. On the other hand, knowing the facts and being reassured can help you focus on what really matters, like a connection, being playful, and being intimate. So here's the truth in simple words. Most men are just fine the way they are. Women aren't secretly looking for giants. They're mostly choosing someone who is comfortable to be around, someone they can get along with, and someone they feel close to. 1. A study found that many men are unhappy with their size, but this unhappiness often comes from what's in their head rather than what's in their pants. 2. When men worry excessively about their size, it can affect their relationships in a negative way. A. It can make them less confident, which can make them feel like they're not good enough for their partner. B. It can make them feel pressured to perform, which can make sex feel like a chore rather than something enjoyable. C. It can also make them feel anxious, which can make it harder for them to relax and be intimate with their partner. 3. So what can men do to overcome their size worries? A. They can learn more about the facts of sex and what women really want. B. They can talk to their partner and find out what she really wants and needs. C. They can work on building a stronger connection with their partner and finding ways to be more intimate and playful. 4. In the end, most men are perfectly fine just the way they are. Women aren't secretly looking for giants. They're mostly choosing someone who is comfortable to be around, someone they can get along with, and someone they feel close to. 5. So men, don't let your size worries hold you back. Focus on building a stronger connection with your partner and finding ways to be more intimate and playful. With time and practice, you'll find that size becomes less important and what truly matters becomes more and more important. 6. And remember, size isn't everything. What truly matters is being present, confident, and caring. These qualities are what will bring you and your partner true fulfillment and happiness. 7. So don't worry so much about your size. Focus on what you can control, your mindset, your behavior, and your relationship with your partner. With time and practice, you'll find that you're more confident, more playful, and more intimate. And that's what truly matters. A. You'll be able to focus on the things that bring you and your partner joy and fulfillment. B. You'll be able to build a stronger connection with your partner and find ways to be more intimate and playful. C. You'll be able to let go of your size worries and focus on what truly matters: connection, playfulness, and intimacy. 8. So don't let your size worries hold you back. Focus on building a stronger connection with your partner and finding ways to be more intimate and playful. With time and practice, you'll find that size becomes less important and what truly matters becomes more and more important. Word count 1262. If you fall within the normal range and the numbers show that's likely, then you probably already have what you need. If this info gave you a sense of calm, I'd like to suggest checking out one of my earlier videos where I go into more detail about that study on vaginal orgasms. It adds some extra details, but again, it's about small differences, not huge extremes. Before I go, let me say one more thing. Your self-confidence comes from knowing things, not from comparing yourself to others. Every time you stop focusing on unrealistic ideas and start concentrating on being present, listening, and feeling connected, you'll discover a level of closeness that's much stronger than any physical measurement. So remember this, you are good enough just the way you are. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And most importantly, take care of yourself because your worth isn't measured by a number. 1. You might be thinking, but I want to know more. If that's the case, then let's dive deeper. I've got an earlier video where I explain that study on vaginal orgasms in more detail. 2. It's worth noting that this study isn't about huge differences, but rather small ones. The point is, it's not about extremes, but about understanding what's normal. 3. Now, let me say something that might be a bit harder to hear. Your self-confidence isn't about comparing yourself to others. It's about knowing things, being present, and feeling connected. 4. When you stop comparing and start being present, you'll discover a level of closeness that's much stronger than any physical measurement. It's not about size, it's about connection. 5. So remember this, you are good enough just the way you are. Don't compare yourself to others. Focus on being present and feeling connected. 6. If you need to hear this again, just remember, your worth isn't measured by a number. You are more than enough and you deserve to be treated with respect. Word count 1373.